Hello, this is Cole Anderson again, your host for The Independent Pianist. We're finally returning to some performance videos now. I've just gotten done with a very busy, pretty stressful stretch of time these last few weeks, so I'm finally able to work on some of my solo recordings again, and I'm beginning to feel a little bit of that wonderful kind of calm and release that you get after having been through some very busy times. And in keeping with that, I decided to make my first recording of something rather peaceful and calm. So this, of course, is one of my favorite among the lyric pieces by Grieg. I grew up actually with a profound love for nature, which has continued to the present time, and the kind of stillness that one experiences in the deep, silent places in nature. So this was one of those pieces early on in my life which really connected in with that kind of love. I've loved this piece since I was a teenager, spending most of my non-practicing time wandering around in the forest. It was pretty natural, I suppose. And playing this piece now really brought me back to those early days in my piano playing journey when I was just figuring out how to play with true imagination and expressivity on the piano. Grieg's lyric pieces were very important in that part of my journey. You know, it's very possible to find a kind of very beautiful native piano sound that is just as beautiful as any stringed instrument or wind instrument or voice or even the sound of an orchestra. But it's actually quite difficult. It's really necessary to search for this kind of sound and to learn to draw these kinds of effects from the instrument. So that's always my never-ending quest, and I think that it really started with some of these very simple, beautiful lyric pieces by Grieg. These pieces are not mechanically complicated in any way. They are brilliantly written for the piano, but they fall right under your hand very naturally. Grieg was not a virtuoso, but he was very able on the piano, and he was very sensitive to the unique qualities that the instrument possesses. And I always find that these pieces are practically ideal for teaching as well. They're great for just finding all these little expressive nuances that are possible in piano playing. The expressive possibilities are all there in these pieces without any of the sometimes crippling complications for the relative beginner that you find with mazurkas by Chopin or intermezzi by Brahms, for example. Grieg, of course, gets kind of a bad rap among the academic establishment. I think I've mentioned this before. I've personally heard him referred to on more than one occasion as a composer specially attuned to all of the banalities of 19th century Romanticism. But I think that that's a kind of a cynical attitude which is unfortunate and misses the point of much of Grieg's music. It's certainly true that he can sometimes seem a little bit naive in larger structures, but that is balanced by a wonderful sense of proportion and clarity and a unique sense of poetic rightness. If you really delve into his greatest miniatures, like the lyric pieces, the Norwegian folk dances, you don't find the kind of incredibly subtle chromatic language or contrapuntal complications of the aforementioned Chopin mazurkas or Brahms intermezzi, but you do find an inexhaustible wellspring of genuine poetic temperament. And even though I don't necessarily think it's vital to always view a composer in terms of their historic importance, but actually Grieg was much more important as a forerunner of Impressionism than is usually acknowledged. Harmonically, he often writes standard harmonies in a non-functional way. So in this very piece, there is a passage with a pair of dominant seventh chords towards the end of the piece, which don't resolve in any standard way. And it's really only a step from a passage like that to the harmonic planing of unresolved dominant seventh chords that you find in Debussy's music, for example. As another example, take the opening chords of the piece. They form a standard 2-5-1 progression, but because they are written in complete parallel motion, ignoring standard classical voice leading where you'd normally expect to have more oblique or contrary motion among the voices, and because they are set so far apart in the high treble from the resolution in the bass, the whole passage takes on a kind of magical distance and shimmer. It's remarkable how simple the means are that Grieg uses to create a genuinely magical effect like this from the simplest and most hackneyed basic material, a 2-5-1 cadence. This is mirrored by the way in which Grieg will set up an expectation of almost classical simplicity. So the main theme in this piece, for example, is a simple 8-bar phrase, very standard, very symmetrical, but then when the theme repeats, he interrupts right before the last note, twice, and wanders away into very distant harmonies. It's a kind of stream of consciousness, a manner that is perfectly representative of high romanticism. I think this kind of conscious invoking of classical symmetry, contrasted with its complete opposite, is a big part of what makes Grieg's music so poetic and so special. We find places of comfort and predictability, but the wayward, adventurous spirit is never far away at any moment. So I hope that this performance and analysis will perhaps inspire some greater respect for Grieg's special qualities as a musician. I'm so happy to be back to presenting some of my solo performances for your delectation. Please do consider supporting the channel if you can. Of course, a very simple way to do that is just to hit the like button and the subscribe button in YouTube. But if you want to become a financial supporter to the channel and really help me to bring you more ambitious projects in the future, you can do that either through my Patreon account, www.patreon.com/independentpianist, or you can also make one-time donations through PayPal. That's all very much appreciated. Any amount helps me to just put more and more focus into this channel. Also, if you are interested in studying with me online, I do teach online students. Just drop me a message at cole@independentpianist.com and we can have a consultation. So until next time, this is Cole Anderson signing off.